Very good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on The Big Story. I'm Afrida Rehman Ali. We are going to take a close look at the revised vaccine procurement policy announced by the Prime Minister last evening, looking at the aspect of how this is now going to help the issue of inequitable distribution. Will it make it more equitable, more accessible and affordable for the people at large? That's the main issue in question, because remember, the Supreme Court had flagged off the pricing and the procurement issue, calling the government's policy for 18 to 45 age group arbitrary and irrational. Now, a week later, that was an order coming from Justice D.Y. Chandrachud on the 31st of May. A week later, the Prime Minister himself makes this announcement. Three big changes announced in the current policy. First, all age groups will now qualify, 18 plus age groups will now qualify for free vaccines. So there is no distinction between centre procured or state procured. Secondly, the state allocation will now depend on at least three issues: assessment of demand, which will again depend on the caseload, the population density, the utilization of doses, and also importantly, wastage, which will be, of course, a negative matrix. The third big change is that the states will be notified in advance of the allotted doses, so that they can do the granular planning at the local level and make sure that the implementation is done smoothly. So it seems there has been a lot of course correction in this, which is of course a welcome step. This comes into effect from the 21st of June. But like I said, the big question remains. The opposition is now claiming that this has come at an opportune moment where the cases are coming down. India is now recording below 1 lakh cases per day for the 8th straight day. The new cases per day is somewhere over 80,000 now. And also there is going to be an abundance of vaccines very soon, with more international manufacturers coming into the picture. And therefore, the opposition and some of the state leadership also claim that the government of the day and Prime Minister Modi wants to use the opportunity to make it look like a rescue plan and, of course, capitalize on the situation. So we'll talk about all that. Let me introduce my guests this afternoon. Joining me here on The Big Story, Amulya Nidhi, National Co-convenor of the Jan Swasthya Abhiyan India. Amulya Nidhi is not really convinced that this will help the inequitable distribution issue and the pricing issue, has tweeted a lot on this, so we will talk to Mr. Nidhi about that. Tuhin, spokesperson of the BJP, will help us understand how this revised policy is now going to cure all ills and make the procurement a fair system. So Tuhin, let me begin with you, and if you could take that question. I have two issues I want you to address. First, the issue of accessibility, affordability and inequitable distribution. How will that change? And secondly, if you look at the pace, Tuhin Sinha, the current per day vaccination, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you're very thorough with the figures, the current per day is somewhere around 28 lakhs vaccination. What the required per day is around 90 lakhs per day if we have to meet the December commitment of vaccinating the entire adult population. On these two issues, how will the new policy, revised policy, help?
Well, Afrida, I think the steps initiated by the Honorable Prime Minister yesterday were path-breaking steps. Now, I know you keep quoting the figure 28 lakhs today. It has been in the vicinity of 28 to 30 lakhs for a week now. But fact is that this temporary scarcity or this temporary fall in daily dosage numbers was not entirely unanticipated. The bulk orders for fresh supplies were placed in April. And, you know, I can understand the Congress not understanding it. They probably expect vaccines to be ready like instant noodles, but they have their own production cycles. So between Bharat Biotech and Serum Institute of India was supposed to produce 7 crore vaccines each in May, June and July, and Bharat Biotech was supposed to produce 2 crore vaccines each. So which meant that 9 crores were supposed to come in May, which probably didn't come, which is why the scarcity was there. But again, the government has made it very clear to compensate for that. 12 crore vaccines, which is 3 crores in excess of that, are expected in June. And which is why you see the resurgence, which is why you see the figures increasing. And let me assure you that the figures are constantly going to increase from here. In a path-breaking move, the government has actually pre-ordered 30 crore doses from Biological E, the first set of 25% of that 7.5 crores might come only in September. But going ahead, I don't see any scarcity, and a figure of 1 crore doses of daily vaccination is pretty much attainable by the first week of August. So this should address the availability issue. The other issue was the distribution. I think it is very fair to put an impetus on wastage. Not only, incidental wastage, we have seen scams of the worst kind in Punjab. Somehow, you don't have a Congress spokesperson today, but the criminal wastage which has taken place in the states of Punjab and Rajasthan need to be accounted for. And so incentivizing states which optimize the usage of vaccine is only a very natural thing.
Okay, right. So that's an optimistic note, Mr. Sinha, and I do hope that you are bang on in this in terms of the fact that let's hope that from here on, everything will get ramped up. There'll be no short supply, vaccines will be in abundance, and we will also be able to increase the per day vaccination and meet the commitment that is made by your government that by December we will complete vaccinating the adult population. Amulya Nidhi, it seems you are arguing very strongly in many of the posts that you have written about the pricing issue. And if I'm not mistaken, you're comparing it with the fact that since you could not manage a price cap on testing, on oxygen, on remdesivir, how are we going to, going forward, ensure this price cap for the vaccines? Because the private players' quota remains intact, the 25%, and they are allowed 150 rupees as service charge. What makes you believe that they can be overcharging here, Amulya Nidhi?
See, if you see, there is a government sector and there is a private sector. The private sector, Jan Swasthya have been struggling with the Clinical Establishment Act to regulate the private sector in this country. Till today, there is no price cap, universal price cap as under this Act, Clinical Establishment Act, to regulate the private sector in the country. Now, if you see the whole, coming back to the vaccine part, if you see there is no example around the world where this 75 and 25% policy is moving around. You have to learn from the global pandemic. So the problem here is if you have a shortage of availability, till 16 January, the government of India today's 16 January to 30th April, 100% vaccine were procured by the government of India and provide free of cost to certain section 45 and F. So now why not today you are procuring all the 100% vaccine, whatever is available in the country, government of India should procure everything and then supply it. Why there is a cost differences? For example, if you see for simple co-vaccine cost.
The reason, Mr. Nidhi, is that this is to incentivize. This is to incentivize vaccine manufacturers, and also those who can afford to pay should pay.
Yes.
So the government does not want to subsidize the entire population, including those who can afford to pay for a vaccine.
But I agree,
what is wrong with that?
Ultimately, it's taxpayer money. If Covaxin is able to give 150 rupees to the government of India, why it is supplying to 1200 rupees? In Covaxin is ready to give 150 rupees to government of India. Why 600 to private players? So ultimately, how much public have to pay? 1200 plus 150 rupees convenience fees. So you don't have any control. How you control it? So the pharma company is already and you put this under national list of essential medicine. Why not you are doing a price cap? Whether it is private or it's a taxpayer money. So our argument is think about the globally. Globally, this is not an example.
So you are saying that on procurement you are fine, but on pricing you have your doubts. On the pricing issue. Let Mr. Sinha respond to that. I'll come back to you. Yes, Tuhin Sinha, would you like to respond to the issue of differential pricing, which continues to persist even with the revised policy? Hold on, I'm coming back to you, Amulya Nidhi. Let Tuhin respond.
Procure 100%, supply 100% and give one free of cost to entire country, irrespective of caste, class. This is my intention and this is global experience.
Okay.
There are, while we are providing just to take a momentary detour, while we are providing free ration for the next 6 months to 80 crore people, I'm sure in this country you will find people who will suddenly ask you, now why isn't Amazon purchases and Swiggy purchases being made free? And unfortunately, I won't have an answer to this. as a robust advocate of the private
No,
sector,
it's not the same
I
thing.
want
Come
to
on. I mean, this
speak-
is the vaccination which is necessary to protect
so
the health
much.
and safety of the population.
We
It's
take
not
a
the same thing as
futuristic,
your
Take a
Swiggy food
futuristic
orders.
of India right to life. It is
Let's stick to the topic. Yes, carry on. Mr. Sinha, finish your point. Sorry, I interrupted. Finish your point.
futuristic view, there are people in this country who can afford to go to a private hospital, would prefer to go to a private hospital, and would pay a higher amount of money. So why do you are you speaking on behalf of everybody? You're not speaking on behalf of everybody. I think the 75% free doses pretty much covers all of those people who are looking for free vaccine, and let the private sector operate the way it wants to operate. If you don't incentivize the private sector, rest assured, I mean, we are not going back to the age of communism. The age of communism is over. So
Just
even
now
in
you
the
told Punjab and
So
Rajasthan
the
is
only
clearing
reason
on
there are people
time
arguing
equally
for
is
this,
that
Tuhin
the
Sinha,
Sinha
is
is
so
giving
that
us
you
better
manage to maximize
The public
the
health
vaccination and as quickly as possible
absolutely.
without the pricing becoming any deterrent. Already there are deterrents like vaccine hesitancy. The price factor should not be any deterrent. So I guess many are arguing that clear all the hurdles that are necessary to make the vaccination process smooth, fast, and it should happen in breakneck speed so that the population is protected and we don't have to face a third wave. Okay, yes, respond please. Amulya Nidhi, go ahead.
Yeah, that's why. See, the problem is that in the global pandemic, learn from any country. It is the public health emergency. It is a state central responsibility and the right to life. You have to provide free vaccine. Why not you can? Why you are dividing us in caste, class, economic, digital and everything? And the Supreme Court also clearly, I'm also.
But
filed a
Amulya
petition.
Nidhi, if you look at
You're
the
not able
figures
to
from
control the
May,
cost of
yes, and
treatment. You are
I
not
will
able
have
to
Tuhin
treat the
respond
cost
on
of
this as
treatment.
well. There is a serious concern on the procurement by private players because the amount that they procured in the last month is about 16%. Of course, they are allowed 25%. They have acquired 16%, but they have utilized only around 9%. So the private players are cornering vaccines, not able to utilize it, which is why there might be a very fair argument that why doesn't the government take responsibility for all of it? Why leave any scope for this kind of wastage, Tuhin Sinha?
You have not able to control anything in the time of pandemic, any cost of the treatment and anything. Tell us.
Since these people keep telling us,
Okay,
you
let
know
Mr.
from
Sinha
other
respond.
country,
Hold on.
which-
Amulya
which
Nidhi, just hold on.
country-
Coming back to you. Hold on.
Which country do you want us to learn from? Russia, which till 30th April had only 8% population with at least vaccinated with the first dose. Japan, which has a 5% population vaccinated with the dose. Australia, which has a 5% population vaccinated with at least one of the doses. New Zealand. So, I mean, till now the problem was of the scarcity. Now they have a problem with pricing. I think it is very fair that 75% of the doses will be given free. The remaining 25%, today you may quote a figure, 16% of the vaccines are being procured by the private companies. But like I have always maintained, this pandemic is not a static situation. Every day situations evolve. And I think it's the most fair arrangement where you have very clearly segregated 3:1. At the same time, do you realize that the states, there is a data available today, the states will be saving up to 30,000 crores, which they would have otherwise spent on the purchase of these vaccines. Now, the states will not escape the scrutiny to actually invest on improving their healthcare. CMs like Arvind Kejriwal, who have throughout only hoodwinked on the issue in the last few months, are being taken care of by the center. So by just picking out one issue of pricing, which again does not have a basis because 75% of the vaccines are anyway free, I think you're creating unnecessary, imagining problems where there are none.
Put this in national list of essential medicines.
Okay, last word to
Put them on
Amulya
price
Nidhi.
cap.
Let's at least concede that this is better than your 50-25-25. Now you have a 75-25 policy, which is better than, we have at least made some improvement. Would you agree? At least that much progress has been made.
So see, this is a very 1978, the vaccination program running in this country. This is again, there is no confusion, universal vaccination program is there. And it is our right in the public health emergency. What we are expecting? We are just expecting the basic vaccination. That's all. Where is the argument? This is the simple things. Price cap. 150 rupees pharma company is getting benefit of giving government. See what's happening to all the rates. You are telling those who pay, they can pay. Who is ready to pay? But 2% of the population, 1% of the population, 140 taxpayers, those who are the highest taxpayer in this country, who is able to pay? The middle class? We have seen the cost of treatment, 3 lakh, 5 lakh, 10 lakhs. So that's the whole issue. It is a public health emergency, right to life. We are expecting a simple vaccine. What we expect? And you are forced to, due to the, so think in that direction. I am not talking about which country did what. I am talking about the vaccine.
But then, of course, there will be a counter argument that those who can afford to pay for the vaccine, let them pay, let the vaccine manufacturers make that much profit. That will incentivize further manufacturing. I mean, of course, there are a lot of economics involved in this. I'll have to leave it at that. But great to have two different and contrasting opinions on it. Tuhin, Sinha, Amulya Nidhi, thanks for joining us. Let's take a short break here. News and updates continue on the other side.